So hey, how you doing? I hope all's good. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of reading of the Silmarillion, and I think where I stopped, I think I went through. The foreword completely, and I think I went through the preface. So, I don't think I finished the whole letter by J.R.R. Tolkien, but I'll go ahead and read it again. So, from a letter by J.R.R. Tolkien to Milton Waldman in 1951. So, my dear Milton, you asked for a brief sketch of my stuff that is connected with my imagery world. It is difficult to say anything without saying too much. The attempt to say a few words opens a floodgate of excitement. The egoist and artist at once desires to say how the stuff has grown, what it is like, and what he thinks he means or is trying to represent by it all. I shall inflict some of this on you, but I will append a mere resume of its contents, which it may be all that you want or will have use or time for. In order of time, growth, and composition, this stuff began with me, though I do not suppose that is of much interest to anybody but myself. I do not remember a time when I was not building it. Many children make up or begin to make up imaginary languages. Excuse me. I have been at it since I could write, but I have never stopped, and of course, as a professional philologist, especially interested in linguistic aesthetics, I have changed in taste, improved in theory, and probably in craft. Behind my stories is now a nexus of languages, mostly only structurally sketched, but to those creatures which in English I call misleadingly elves, are assigned two related languages more nearly completed, whose history is written, and whose forms represent two different sides of my own linguistic taste, are deduced scientifically from a common origin. Out of these languages are made nearly all the names that appear in my legends. This gives a certain character, a cohesion, a consistency of linguistic style, and an illusion of historicity to the nomenclature, or so I believe, that is markedly lacking in other comparable things. Excuse me one second. Not all will feel this as important as I do, since I am cursed by acute sensibility in such matters. But an equally basic passion of mine, ab initio, was for myth, not allegory, and for fairy story, and above all for heroic legend on the brink of fairy tale and history, of which there is far too little in the world, accessible to me for my appetite. I was an undergraduate before thought and experience revealed to me that these were not divergent interests, opposite poles of science and romance, but integrally related. I am not learned, in the matters of myth and fairy story. However, for in such things, as far as known to me, I have always been seeking material, things of a certain tone and air, and not simple knowledge. Also in here, I hope I shall not sound absurd, I was from early days grieved by the poverty of my own beloved country. It had no stories of its own, bound up with its tongue and soil, not of the quality that I sought and found as an ingredient in legends of other lands. There was Greek and Celtic and Romance, Germanic, Scandinavian, and Finnish, which greatly affected me, but nothing English, save impoverished chap book stuff. Of course, there was and is all the Arthurian world, but powerful as it is imperfectly naturalized, associated with the soil of Britain, but not with English, and does not replace what I felt to be missing. For one thing, its fairy is too lavish and fantastical, incoherent and repetitive. For another and more important thing, it is involved in and explicitly contains the Christian religion. Excuse me. For reasons which I will not elaborate, that seems to me fatal. So yeah, I read most of this previously, but I'm just going to go through it again because I didn't remember where I was, so I'm just going to go through it again. Myth and fairy story must, as all art, reflect and contain in solution elements of moral and religious truth or error, but not explicit, not in the known form of the primary real world. I'm speaking, of course, of our present situation, not of ancient pagan pre-Christian days, and will not repeat what I tried to say in my essay, which you read. Do not laugh, but once more upon a time, my crest has long since fallen. I had a mind to make a body of more or less connected legend, ranging from the large and cosmogonic to the level of romantic fairy story, the larger founded on the lesser in contact with the earth, the lesser drawing splendor from the vast backcloths, which I could dedicate simply to England, to my country. It should possess the tone and quality that I desired, somewhat cool and clear, be redolent of our air, the clime and soil of the Northwest, meaning Britain and the hither parts of Europe, not Italy or the Aegean, still less the East, and while possessing, if I could achieve it, the fair elusive beauty that some call Celtic, though it is really found in genuine ancient Celtic things, it should be high, purged of the gross, and fit for the more adult mind of a land long now steeped in poetry. I would draw some of the great tales in fullness and leave many only placed in the scheme and sketched. The cycles should be linked to a majestic whole, and yet leave scope for other minds and hands, wielding paint and music and drama absurd. Excuse me. Of course, such an overweening purpose did not develop all at once. The mere stories were the thing. They arose in my mind as given things, and as they came separately, so too the links grew. An absorbing, though continually interrupted labor, especially since, even apart from the necessities of life, the mind would wing to the other pole and spend itself on the linguistics. Yet always I had the sense of recording what was already there, somewhere, not of inventing. Excuse me. Of course, I made up and even wrote lots of other things, especially for my children. Some escaped from the grasp of this branching acquisitive theme, being ultimately and radically unrelated. Leaf by Niggle and Farmer Giles, for instance, the only two that have been printed. The Hobbit, which has much more essential life in it, was quite independently conceived. I did not know as I began it that it belonged, but it proved to be the discovery of the completion of the whole, its mode of descent to earth and merging into history, as the high legends of the beginnings are supposed to look at things through elvish minds. So the middle tale of The Hobbit takes a virtually human point of view, and the last tale blends them. I dislike allegory, the conscious and intentional allegory. Yet any attempt to explain the purpose of myth or fairy tale must use allegorical language. And of course, the more life a story has, the more readily it will be susceptible of allegorical interpretations. While the better a deliberate allegory is made, the more nearly will it be acceptable just as a story. Anyway, all this stuff is mainly concerned with fall, mortality, and the machine. With fall, inevitably, and that motive occurs in several modes. With mortality, especially as it affects art in the creative, or as I should say, sub-creative desire, which seems to have no biological function and to be apart from the satisfactions of plain ordinary biological life, with which in our world it is indeed usually at strife. This desire is at once wedded to a passionate love of the real primary world, and hence filled with the sense of mortality, and yet unsatisfied by it. It has various opportunities of fall, and may become possessive, clinging to the things made as its own, as a sub-creator wishes to be the Lord and the God of his private creation. He will rebel against the laws of the Creator, especially against mortality. Both of these alone or together will lead to the desire for power, for making the will more quickly effective, and so to the machine or magic. By the last, I intend all use of external plans or devices, apparatus, instead of developments of the inherent inner powers or talents, or even the use of these talents with the corrupted motive of dominating, bulldozing the real world, or coercing other wills. The machine is our more obvious modern form, for more closely related to magic than it is usually recognized. I have not used magic consistently, and indeed the elven Queen Galadriel is obliged to remonstrate with the hobbits on their confused use of the word, both for the devices and operations of the enemy and for those of the elves. I have not, because there is not a word for the latter, since all human stories have suffered the same confusion. But elves are there in my tales to demonstrate the difference. Their magic is art, delivered from many of its human limitations, more effortless, more quick, more complete, product and vision in unflawed correspondence. And its object is art, not power, sub-creation, not domination, and tyrannous reforming of creation. The elves are immortal, at least as far as this world goes, and hence are concerned rather with the griefs and burdens of deathlessness in time and change than with death. The enemy in successive forms is always naturally concerned with sheer domination, and so the Lord of magic and machines. But the problem that this frightful can and does arise from an apparently good root, the desire to benefit the world and others speedily and according to the benefactor's own plans, is a recurrent motive. So I think I'm probably going to round it off there. No, actually, no. I'll go a little bit longer. Excuse me. The cycles begin with a cosmological myth, the music of the Ainur. God and the Valar powers, Englished as gods, are revealed. These latter are, as we should say, angelic powers, whose function it is to exercise delegated authority in their spheres of rule and government, not creation, making, or remaking. They are divine, that is, were originally outside and existed before the making of the world. Their power and wisdom is derived from their knowledge of the cosmogonical drama, which they perceive first as a drama, that is, in a fashion we perceive a story composed by someone else, and later as a reality, on the side of mere narrative device. This is, of course, meant to provide beings of the same order of beauty, power, and majesty as the gods of higher mythology, which can yet be accepted, well, shall we say baldly, by a mind that believes in the blessed Trinity. It moves then swiftly to the history of the elves, or the Silmarillion proper, to the world as we perceive it, but of course transfigured in a still half mythical mode. That is, it deals with rational incarnate creatures of more or less comparable stature with our own. The knowledge of the creation drama was incomplete in each individual god, and incomplete if all the knowledge of the pantheon were pooled, for partly to redress the evil of the rebel Malcor, partly for the completion of all. In an ultimate finesse of detail, the Creator had not revealed all. The making and nature of the children of God were the two chief secrets. All that the gods knew was that they would come at appointed times. The children of God are thus primevally related and akin, and primevally different. since also they are somewhat wholly other to the gods, in the making of which the gods play no art. They are the object of the special desire and the love of the gods. These are the firstborn, the elves, and the followers, men. The doom of the elves is to be immortal, to love the beauty of the world, to bring to it full flower with their gifts of delicacy and perfection, to last while it lasts, never leaving it even when slain, but returning and yet when the followers come to teach them and make way for them, to fade as the followers grow and absorb the life from which both proceed. The doom, or the gift of men, is mortality, freedom from the circles of the world. Since the point of view of the whole cycle is the elvish, mortality is not explained mythically. It is a mystery of God of which no more is known, and that was what God had purposed for men is hidden, a grief and an envy to the immortal elves. So I think that was a good start, and I think I'm going to stop there. Thanks for watching, and I have at least, I think maybe one video I'll put out later tonight. It's going to be a short, and then another one that I'm working on and taking my time with. Thanks so much. Later.